Hey everybody, my name is Rashmi and I'm from Print Shop by Designhill. Just a quick check, am I audible to you all? Can you reply to me in the chat section, please? Guys, am I audible? Okay, cool. Anybody else? All right, I think I'm clear. Yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us today, and thank you so much, Teresa, for taking out your time for joining us in this live AMA session with Print Shop by Design Hill. We are so glad that we are doing this for the community and helping them out. I'm sure this whole session will bring a lot of value to those who have joined us live and to those who are there on the community on Instagram and outside this live AMA session. So thank you so much for joining us, Teresa.
Well, thanks, Rashmi. It's a pleasure being here, and thanks for everyone showing up.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, guys, all those who have joined us, I'll just quickly introduce myself and who we are, and then we'll quickly, start with the live AMA. So, I'm Rashmi from Print Shop by Design Hill. Print Shop by Design Hill is a global marketplace for Designhill is a global marketplace for designers and business owners to sort of come together on the platform and get all the kind of graphic design requirement that they have. So from packaging to logo to any kind of design, they can get it done on Designhill. Now, Print Shop is one of the service that Designhill has sort of started for artist community. So. As an artist, whether you are pattern designer or typography designer or illustrator, any kind of artist that can come on the platform and have their artwork displayed on thousands of products. So it is a community for artists to come on the platform, have their artwork on thousands of products ranging from t-shirt to hoodies to bags to phone cases, all of these products. And Designhill will be selling the products on your behalf to the global community, and it is one of the great platform for you to make monetize on your skill basically. So I'll do one thing. I'll share the link of the platform at the end of the AMA session to you guys, so that you can go and check out about get to know more about the platform. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us through Instagram and various social media accounts. So starting with this live AMA session with Teresa. Teresa, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Yeah, sure. So maybe it's good for me to go over my design background. I went to school for graphic communications in industrial arts, and so that's what I originally studied. I was in tech publishing, and then medical publishing, and then food packaging design. And during that process, I found that it wasn't really creative because I was working for a brand that already exists, and they have their industry style and their type and font already in place. So I was seeking something a little bit more creative for myself. So I decided to do some watercolor and pick up a couple of hobbies, playing with acrylic paint. And still, I was trying to figure out a way how I can make money while being creative. And during that time, I ran into a class called Surface Pattern Design online. So I took the class through Skillshare, and I'll actually put a link up to everyone so you could get 2 months free if you want, if you use the link that I provide later. And during that process, I just got hooked designing my first pattern. And I decided also at that time to start sharing my art. I think a lot of artists on social media, they're really private about their creativity. rightfully so, because a lot of the times it could be pirated. But for me and for myself, I felt it was really important to share with the community my designs. And in the beginning, you could, if you scroll all the way down on my Instagram account, you could see how my style organically evolved from the beginning. And through Instagram and a lot of networking, personal networking, I started getting contracts and, jobs through my pattern design. So that's been approximately 3 years now. And it's been super fun and exciting, and I love it. It's my passion.
That's really awesome to know. And one of the things that you mentioned was about monetizing on your work, and which is really really important, because one of the major challenges that these creatives and artists are facing out there is that they are very talented, extremely talented, but one of the challenge that they have is that how to monetize on their work, you know and that's where platforms like print shop comes into picture, wherein they can any kind of artist can go on the platform and sell their work to the global customers, and that's why artist community out there can leverage platforms like these. So that's great to know about your journey so far. So in this AMA session, we have got around 100 plus questions from the artist, and we had to shortlist around 20 questions, wherein we can take this up within, because we have time constraint, of course, and we have shortlisted 20 questions which are mostly asked by these artist community. So those people who are who have joined us live and can see this AMA session, if you have any questions, please go to the questions tab, and please put your questions there. I already have a list of questions with me, and a lot of you guys have already asked your question in the registration form itself. But still, we'll jump to the questions tab in between to see if we have any new questions coming up there, and we can sort of pick the questions from there. Cool. So, Teresa, my first question to you that we have received is that since you have transitioned from hand painting to digital painting, so how did the transition happen, and was the switch easy for you?
The switch was really easy for me because I've always worked on Adobe software. Adobe is universal. So through Photoshop, InDesign for publishing, and Illustrator for surface pattern, that's mainly the software I use. I know some people create patterns in Photoshop, but I tend to use Illustrator because it's vector based, meaning I can size the image as long, as big or as small as I want to, without it having some consequences. Like in Photoshop, you might run into pixels and sizing it correctly and stuff like that. So I use Adobe Illustrator. I also work with a Wacom bamboo tablet. So I have a pen that is pressure sensitive on my tablet, and getting used to kind of like the pressure of the tablet and the pen, just as much as like when you're painting on paper and how that translates. But it's great. I love, it's just a new tool for me to be creative.
And so, can you also explain us your journey from when you started as a pattern designer, and how the journey has evolved so far? What are the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome the same?
Yeah, I think, in the very beginning, I creating my first pattern, I was just so excited about it. I didn't know anything in the industry because most of my experience has been in graphic design, which is very different than surface pattern design. So I didn't know anyone in the industry. I would say maybe naive in terms of sometimes what you don't know, you just go into it with more of an open heart and with an excitement. So I didn't let the saturated industry prevent me from moving forward. So I started off creating patterns and putting it on Instagram, and it gained traction from art directors and other designers in the community. So in the very beginning, because I didn't know anything about surface pattern and how much to charge and how does licensing work, I worked a lot on doing research. And I would say, oh, a lot of people would say, find a mentor or find someone that you really love on the platform that you choose on social media and ask them out for coffee or ask them for a phone consult. But people's time is really valuable, and I understand that. And also, when you're really busy as a surface pattern designer, you can't take everyone's request. So what I did in the very beginning was zoned in on getting a phone conversation with a surface pattern designer. And my email to her was, I'm new in the industry, and I want to have an hour of your time. How much would you charge for your hour of time? Because I feel like that it's so valuable for me to get that information. So I reached out to her, and she gave me her rate, and I had a Zoom conversation, and it's so much more authentic, and there's a mutual trade for her time. And I think people in this industry really do want to help out one another, but sometimes it's about their value and time in creating their creative projects, so they can't take everyone's request. And that's a way for you to stand out, I feel, if you can ask someone, I would love to have a consult with you. How much do you charge an hour? And I just need an hour of your time. So I did that with a surface pattern designer that I really felt I liked in the beginning, and also with an art agent. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted to know how much to charge in each industry. Because in surface pattern, it's so broad. You could get into textiles, and it could be furnishing textiles, it could be quilt fabrics, it could be for fashion. And every industry has kind of a base or a range in what to charge. And there's stationery, there's wallpaper, there's home goods. So I had kind of just a rough estimate of how much would be too low and how much would be too high. And that helped me in the beginning just to find my footing in this industry.
That's really great to know. That's really great to know. So a lot of people who registered for this AMA session have asked us one question, which is a lot similar to all of all other questions. So that is, what are the basic rules to be followed while designing a pattern?
Well, designing a pattern, it really depends on who your target audience is. If you know who your target audience is, then you can direct your style, the color to creating for that specific audience. So I would say, figure out who your audience would be. That's really important.
Basically, the key is like who your target audience is, right?
Right. Figure out who your target audience is. But if you're designing for yourself, just to post on Instagram or just to figure out what your style is, that is really very much based upon what calls to you creatively, and start creating consistently and daily, and through that your style will shine through. It's through practice and showing up.
Awesome. And Teresa, also, how can these pattern designers get the from which are the platform for the pattern designers to get the inspiration from, and where are these platforms wherein they can find new trends in pattern designing? Are there any platform that exists like that?
Yes, I think there's quite a few different platforms that can tell you what's trending in the fall of 2020, because fashion is projected a year in advance. I think Pattern Bank is one of them. If you Google, um, pattern trends, there would be a couple of websites that can show up in terms of some you have to subscribe to for them to give you a lookbook for the upcoming trends. For me, for myself, I really try to come up with what brings me joy authentically. And it could be, something my daughter mentions that it's trending in her school, or it could be me going out and shopping and finding something that really resonates with me. And how can I put my creative style and twist into that to make it unique? It could be, creating something and Googling the colors that are up and coming for the next year, and picking one or two of them to incorporate in my base color selection that I have already. And so then it's kind of fun and trend worthy in terms of, oh, she has that pop of neon color that's coming up in the fall, or stuff like that. So always have keeping in mind the trends, but don't be a slave to it, because you have to create from a very authentic place, or else it's not going to translate.
Great. And it is all about looking around, observing things, I guess, that you'll
Yeah,
understand better about.
exactly. It could be spending time in nature for a lot of people. It could be going shopping for some people, or it could be just spending time with your family and friends, and you'll see stuff that calls to you. And, I have an iPhone, and I could take a picture of something that inspires me, and I have a log of it. So when I'm creatively blocked, I can go back with the photos that I feel like, oh, it really called to me. Yeah, I remember seeing that plant on my run this morning, and I really thought it was beautiful, and I love the colors. And now, how am I going to incorporate that?
Observing around is the key here. Awesome. So,
Right. Because you don't want to spend all your, 8 hours a day in front of the computer. I don't work that way. Half of my day is, part of my day is spent on my business. And I would say just a couple of hours is spent creating on my computer in a day. That way, I don't have burnout in terms of just being on the computer all day for 8 hours a day. I don't think is healthy.
cool. So, so all of the ones there might of people over here who have joined us live might be starting new in this pattern designing industry, and a lot of people who registered for this AMA session, they relatively asked us a question about those who are starting new as a beginner, that what are the top 4 to 5 tips that you would like to give to aspiring or beginning those who are beginners in the pattern designing industry, and so that they can be successful in this industry and they can make big. What are the top five, your top 4 to 5 tips that you would like to share with them?
Well, my very first tip is this your passion? You know, is this what you're really excited about? Because if you're not, you come against obstacles, it's going to be really easy for you to say this just isn't working out. But if you are committed and you love pattern design, you're just going to move forward every day, as little as like 10-15 minutes creating a pattern or doing some research about it. It doesn't have to be all consuming while, let's say, you have your full-time job or you're transitioning from a part-time job to surface pattern design. What was really helpful for me in the beginning was looking into how can I educate myself in surface pattern? Is it taking an online class? Is it reading about licensing? Because there are many different forms of how you can sell your art. There's licensing, there's buying outright, and there's also people contracting. So and I work in all 3 ways. And one of the books that was really helpful to me was this book right here. It's called Art, Money, and Success. I'll type it right now so you guys could take a look at it. And it goes through the more logistical business aspects of marketing and also licensing, what to do, what not to do. There's a sample contract in there that you can modify. So I felt like that was really valuable. And I got it on Amazon, so it was super easy. And also, keeping yourself with a daily practice is really important. There are times where I don't have that much time, or I feel like I just don't feel like it, or I'm creatively blocked. But once I sit down and I commit to like 10-15 minutes, a lot of times it's a lot longer than that once I get started. But that's how your style evolves, and that's how you start working on things that you're really excited about. Is your style whimsical, or is it very structured? There's just a huge array of styles out there, and honing in on what calls to you. You can't do that unless you go down and start creating. So another tip is also, I feel like sharing my journey through social media on Instagram was huge in just the community with other surface pattern designers, and also with art directors that are looking for talent.
That's really great to know. That's really great to know. So, you mentioned about pattern designing as a whole, and sharing your journey on Instagram so that other people can know about your journey and all of that. So at the end of the day, the every pattern designer out there is looking for work where they can monetize on it and how they can monetize on it. So what are the platforms that exist for pattern designers wherein they can sell their work?
Where they can sell their work.
Yeah, where they can
Um,
sell the
there's
patterns.
so for me, I used one of my big funnels is through Instagram and also through networking, putting yourself out there, and not being shy when people speak to you about, oh, what is it that you do? Um, you can just tell them I'm a surface pattern designer, and a lot of people would ask, like, oh, what does that entail? And you could talk to them about it's really broad. You could figure out what industry you want to start off in, whether it's textiles or stationery, maybe, or home goods, and start doing research in terms of what companies do you see your patterns on. So that's really exciting, right? For a beginner surface pattern designer, just envisioning where you feel like your patterns would fit in the market and where you ultimately would like to see your patterns. Then from there, you can start working backwards in terms of, okay, I know I really want to get into stationery. Who are some of the stationery manufacturers I can contact? And you could create a template, a letter template of reaching out to stationery companies. This is, your name and you're looking for a collaboration, but put together something that's authentic to you. And also you could put a link to your portfolio, your online portfolio or your social media so they can find out more about you and contact them in a couple of days to see if there's any interest. So you almost have to separate yourself from being an artist and also being a business person, because you're doing both as a surface, as a freelance surface pattern designer.
And what are I would like to know the process of now that people have made great patterns and have sort of done a great work there, what is the next step of sort of licensing the pattern so that other people cannot sort of use it for their commercial work? So, how the process of licensing the pattern is?
So it's kind of like what I just talked about in terms of once you have a collection together and a portfolio together, and you know which industry you want to market yourself in, I would Google, let's say, for example, um, quilt fabric manufacturers. And then, or you can on social media figure out who the fabric manufacturers are and DM them, and or you could email the person directly. There is a book called there is a book, I think I have it somewhere around here. It's called the Graphic Design Guild, and it has a list of manufacturers and their art director's name. Sometimes they have the art director's name, but a lot of what you can find in that book you can find on Google, or doing a little online research. It could be someone around your area. It could be when you go shopping and you see, let's say, for example, stationery that you love. You take a look at the back and find out who's the manufacturer, who's producing this item, and then calling them and figuring out who is the art director. Can you have their email address? And shooting them an email with a link to your portfolio and following up. So putting in that footwork, that's part of it. A lot of my clients have actually seeked me out, and that was through social media because I share my work often. I, I create and share my work earlier on a consistent basis. So they would contact me, and then I would follow up with them in terms of what did you have in mind? Um, if you're interested in licensing, we can negotiate a rate, a percentage of, you have to ask, is it gross or net price? There's a bunch of small logistical questions that you should always be asking while you're looking into licensing your artwork. Make sure that there's a contract, and sometimes that process can take months. You're going back and forth. Just because you're newly starting out doesn't always mean you do things for free. If they like you, and they're the ones seeking you out, I think you can definitely, even though you're very early in the process, can tell them how much you charge and what rate you're going for.
Really great to know. So one should have an agreement in place. That's the main crux of licensing the pattern, right? The agreement.
Right. So once you have the agreement in place, you can start talking to the art director there and coming up with whether or not they want something that you've already created, but with a little bit of tweaks that they had in mind, or they want something for you to create for them from scratch. So there are many different ways of working.
Right. So the next question I see on my list is about what are the benefits of being a registered designer on Print Shop by Designer. So I think I'll just take a minute to sort of answer the question here. So, guys, so Print Shop by, as I said, Print Shop by Designhill is a global marketplace for you, for all the artists at a global level to sell their artwork on thousands of products, ranging from T-shirt to hoodies to book covers to phone covers and everything, right? Now Print Shop by Designhill allows you to do what are you best at. You're great at making a design, making a pattern, or typography or illustration. So you just have to come online, upload your artwork on the products which are already listed on the platform. uh, just just see how the product, how your artwork is looking on the product, and if it is looking great, then just submit your artwork there on the products, and Print Shop by Designhill will be doing all the other external things that are being required, from logistic to marketing to everything, to and we will be sort of having a global customer base on the platform, and you can sell your work to the global audience. So basically Print Shop allows you to do what you're best at, and you don't have to take care of anything extra apart from designing or creating patterns for that matter. So that's why it is one of the USP that we have, is that you don't have to take care of anything extra. You just have to come on the platform, have your artwork listed on the platform, on the products which are listed there, and then you can easily sell your work to the global clients over there. So that's the benefit of being a registered designer on Print Shop by Designer. So I hope I have answered your question. Now that I'm answering this question, I would like to share a link with you so that you can go to the platform and see how it looks like. So I'll just share a URL with you.
So is print shop global?
Yes, it is going to be a global platform, and we are officially launching Print Shop by Designhill in the month of October. So as of now, the process is like the artists are sort of uploading their artwork on the products which are being listed there, and from October onwards, we will be officially selling the products on the platform.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see your own pattern on product. There It's such an exciting feeling to see, my designs on textiles or on home goods.
So the next question that I have is that, so I think deciding a price for your pattern is one of the challenging tasks that pattern designers can have out there. So what are your suggestions for those who are who want to sell their artwork, and how pattern designers should price their work right?
Well, of course, you want to figure out what the industry standard is on the market, and it's different all over the world, right? One person's cost of living. I live in San Francisco and in California in the USA, and the price of living is pretty high here. So I have to take into account if I were to break down my hourly rate and what it took me to create this design, is it worthwhile? And that includes, the software I'm using, the computer I have, the utilities that go into it, my time, and also your creativity. What does that mean to you? And are you willing to, you know, sell that artwork outright, or does it mean a lot to you where you want your name on that pattern? So there's many different ways. Some of what I do is licensing, which my name is attached to it. And some of my artwork people buy outright, meaning they give me a one rate and I sell them my digital files and my name is not attached to it. And sometimes people decide to buy outright, and my name is still attached to it. So there's many different ways of working, and it's what you feel comfortable with, what your standard of living is in your lifestyle, and also what the industry rate is.
Great. So also, I would like to know whether what are the where are, like, let's say if I am a new pattern designer who is coming, who want to start, and how can I sort of, where should I create my portfolio, and how the portfolio of pattern designer should look like?
So a lot of portfolios are digital now, and there's a platform called, I'll type it down here, ISSU, I believe. Maybe I'll double check. Let me just double check this really quickly. Okay, so it's ISSUU. So that platform allows you to create a digital portfolio. So you could put together a book and export it into a PDF. So when you put that online, you share it privately. So if you were to send it to an art director, if they've clicked on it and they've seen it, because it shows you if it's been read how many times. And I find that that's a really great way of sharing your work and putting together the portfolio. People want to see a variety in terms of, collections. Do you know how to put together, a hero print with, some, secondary prints. And they also might want to see different colorways with the same design. So there are different ways of putting together a portfolio, but I think building a collection is always really safe. And art directors like to see that because for some people, when they take a look at a hero print meaning your main print that is kind of like the star of the collection, and then maybe 3 or 4 supporting prints, elements of the hero print on the supporting prints. Maybe I'll show you. I just designed this fabric collection for Paintbrush Studios. So this is my hero print. So it's a little lucky kitty with a pond and some blossoms. And this is one of the supporting prints. So it goes together and it looks good together. So here's another supporting print of the cranes that I've taken from the hero print. And there's 2 different colorways. So I just got these swatches from my collection, which is always really exciting. But building that digitally and then having it translate when it does get licensed or sold into product is always really exciting and thrilling to see the end product when you get it.
That's really nice to know. And Basak is asking, one of the live attendees asking a follow-up question on that, that how many pieces at least should be there in a design portfolio as a starter?
Just to start off with, I would say showing, 8 to 10 really strong collections is okay. It just depends on which industry you're sending it to. So let's say, for example, for textiles, that's true, for stationery, it might be different. And for home goods, sometimes they just want one hero print. They don't need to see supporting prints. But I think adding that is never a bad idea because maybe sometimes the art director doesn't want something so busy, but love an element of your supporting prints. Just purchase that. So showing more is not a bad idea, but also it has to translate like your authentic style in the portfolio. It kind of has to stay cohesive. For example, if your style is very cartoonish, you might not want to add something really serious and elegant because it's really confusing in terms of like, what is your style? What do you like to actually produce?
So I hope Basak, Teresa has answered your question over here. So if you have more question, you can just ask, ask the questions in the questions tab. So Teresa, you just mentioned about, identifying your design. And I was just going through the list of questions that I have, and a lot of people wanted to know that how do you identify your style? Like, how do you know that like this is my style and I'll be working on this particular style? So what are your suggestion or your tips for beginners who want to identify their styles? How should they do it?
So I think the best way to do it is to start creating every day. Start creating and letting your style evolve. What's really helpful is going on Pinterest or Instagram, follow other pattern designers that you like their style, but not copy them, but how can you make it yours in terms of what can you bring to the pattern or to the element that can create a whole new style, a whole new, look. And that doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. I spent many, many hours cultivating my voice and my style. And if you see, I'll put my Instagram handle for people who haven't followed me on Instagram, but if you scroll all the way into on the bottom, you can see how things naturally evolved. And for the past couple of years, you could see it stabilizing, and I have like a certain look and feel and some base colors that I always go back to. I can bring in one or two trending colors, but the majority of the colors that I use are colors that really excite me and calls to me on a deeper level. So that's how you eventually cultivate your style. I hope that makes sense.
And I completely agree with your point that it is a continuous process and not just a day of a thing wherein you can just say that this is my style. So you just have to continuously create something every day, and eventually one will figure out that what actually he or she is good at or best at, right?
Right, exactly. Maybe your style is very much, you just want to stick to florals and, a certain type of look and feel of florals. Or it could be something with animals that really call to you, and all your patterns are mainly of mammals or of reptiles. So, I tend to, a lot of my patterns are florals and birds or some animals too. But a lot of it is, just floral patterns, like with some fruit too. Um, and it's not static. It's not like you arrive to a certain place and that is going to be your style for the rest of your life. As you evolve as a artist, as a designer, your style is going to evolve too. And that takes time, and it depends on where you're at as well.
So guys, this takes time. It is not a one day thing. So keep practicing and keep finding your style, and eventually you'll know the best for you. So Teresa, Dana, who is the live attendee in this AMA, have asked us the follow-up question that you mentioned about portfolio. And what she is asking, that you mentioned about having 8 to 10 prints, right? So she's asking about, did you mean 8 to 10 prints for the portfolio or 8 to 10 full collection of hero and secondary prints? So it is a follow-up question on the portfolio's question.
So you can create, it's not 8 to 10 prints total. People want to see more than that. It's, for example, um, this is this is one collection, different colorways. So this is the hero print. This is my hero print, and then these are my supporting prints. So in one collection, you can have like the hero print be a little bit larger and maybe 4 or 5 supporting prints around the hero print. So that's one collection. And then you might want to show that one collection in another colorway. But have like 8 of those or 10, or I would say definitely no less than 8. Some people can even show like 20 something, or it just depends. I would rather show less and show like what you really believe in and what you feel like is authentically good, rather than just putting in something that you don't feel really good about and showing it to an art director. It might work against you then.
the more the merrier. So you should at least have 8 minimum prints on your portfolio, and the more you can have, the best that would be.
So yeah, so 8 collections. So that could be many, many different prints.
Yeah, yeah. So moving forward here, the one of the question that I have on my list is about. So there are a lot of, now this pattern designing industry is huge, and there are a lot of, there's a huge market there for pattern designers, and a lot of artists are there who are doing great work there. So now people want to know that how one can be unique in this, flooded market of pattern designers.
So, it really goes back to what I've been saying earlier on is finding your own voice and your artistic style. And, your artistic style could be similar to someone else's, but then it could also be very different in terms of to you. Do you like to illustrate abstract, or do you like to illustrate something that is very concrete and very realistic? There's such a huge range. So first figure out what calls to you, and then once you figure that out, start sitting down and playing around with it over and over and over again. And once that happens, then your style comes through.
Great, great, great. So now, Teresa, the next question is, like, how? What do you think the future of pattern designs look like?
I think it's so broad, and to me, anywhere you go, you see surface pattern. So there's a lot of opportunity. I've had the opportunity to have my designs on clothing, on furniture, on quilt fabric, on gifts and stuff like that. So it's so broad, and there's so many opportunities out there. I think keeping your mindset positive in terms of you know in more of an abundance mindset rather than mindset like there aren't any opportunities. There are always opportunities. It's where are you looking, and don't get discouraged. Figure out, is this what you really want to do? And once you decide, then I think the next steps will reveal itself to you. You could always put together a schedule, like today I'm going to focus on research. Today I'm going to focus on, cultivating my style. But just as long as you work on it every day, something's going to happen.
Awesome. So I just wanted to, tell all these people who have joined us live is that we have just 5 minutes to wrap up the session, because, of course, the session was for an hour or so. So if you have any extra questions, please go to the questions tab, and we will try to take it up. Because we have limited time, and will try to answer your questions if the time allows. So, Teresa, what I wanted to sort of know is that, let's say, there are pattern designers out there who wanted to know that, is there any way wherein pattern designers can get to know that if I have designed a certain pattern, that particular pattern will look good at, any kind of fabric, say cotton or other kind of fabric. So, is there any way to know that?
Yes, there's what I do a lot is put my designs on mock-ups. And mock-ups is, for example, people create in Photoshop. So then you put your design on the Photoshop file, so then it looks like rolled paper, or it looks like it's on fabric. And so you could see kind of like an end result of where you potentially envision it, or you could put it on wallpaper, and it's just a mock-up in Photoshop of your pattern. So that's a fun way for art directors to also see, the actual pattern that you've designed in, let's say, Illustrator, and then how it translate into whether it's furniture, wallpaper, fabric. So that's a great way of seeing whether or not it works. Because sometimes you have to change the dimensions of the pattern. You might want it to be a lot larger or smaller, and then you can work accordingly, because it's if you design your pattern in Illustrator, you can design it to a repeating pattern that doesn't stop, a continuous pattern.
Awesome. So mockups are sort of important to understand that what kind of design will be looking good at what kind of fabric, right? So going ahead here, we have one question from Brandon, and I think it is a really interesting question to have. And he wanted to know that since you have mentioned in this AMA that you have got a lot of clients through Instagram, so Brandon wants to know that how did you sort of build your Instagram following, and in general also, if you want to give few tips and suggestion to pattern designers about how to go about building a Instagram following, what should you be doing for that?
I think creating consistently is really important. Maybe post once or twice a day, and then following people that you emulate or that you like, whether it's where you see your designs eventually at, or other artists that you feel like that is kind of in the general style that you want to be in. Following all the retailers that you eventually want to see your product in, and also artists that you really enjoy and that brings you joy. Then you start liking their posts, and you create a community that way of other artists. And when you do get a comment once you post, if you reply to the person, and it triggers the Instagram algorithm in terms of engagement. So how much you post, and how often you're on Instagram, in terms of how quickly people respond to you under comments and you reply. It creates this kind of synergy where more people see your post. Does that make sense?
Like sort of engaging with your audience and regularly posting on Instagram for your followers and for your audience is the key to success, I guess. So one should definitely be
Right.
active there and keep engaging with the audience, so they can also get to know about you and more about your style and design. So Teresa, one question, follow-up question we have received here. We You answered about how pattern designers can go about setting a price for their design work, right? So Sneha and others who have upvoted the same wanted to know that how to figure out the industry rate for any kind of design price. How can they go about, where can they get the clue about the industry rate of the design?
So a good way of whether or not, for example, if you get to talk to an art director, or if an art director contacts you and they ask, how much do you charge? A really good way for me to interact with that is, I usually ask them, what is your typical way of working with the designer, and what is your range? So then they get, so they give you their range, and how much they usually charge. They usually buy a pattern, and from there you need to figure out what feels good to you. But also don't underestimate your abilities to charge art directors and retailers for your work, because it's really important that we as surface pattern designers commit to a certain range and not undersell yourself.
So, Sneha, I hope Teresa has answered your question, and I think we'll just take the last question here because we are out of time. And so, the last question for you, Teresa, is and it is a crux of all. So, what do you think are the secrets behind being a successful pattern designers, and the must do things that pattern designers do should to sort of being successful in this industry? So are there any secrets, and if there are, what are these? That's what we want to know.
I think separating yourself from there is, because art is so personal to me, and it's, I'm sure, really personal to all of you in surface pattern design, in terms of this is something that you're creating and it's a reflection of you. So when you're negotiating and when you're talking to the art directors, that's business. So separating yourself from the art when you're negotiating is really important. And also keep in mind that, early on, you have to be relentless and collect your no's, collect your rejections. That's not getting rejected, isn't, information saying that you should stop and not do this. It's just if you try 100 times, there might be one or two people that would respond to you. But if you don't try at all, you're not going to get a response. So put yourself out there, share your work, because if you don't share your creativity, the art directors aren't going to be able to see you or find you. So to me, it was valuable for me to put my art out there, and so people could see it, and create a community of other like-minded people around you is really important.
So, guys, I hope these last minute tips from Teresa would be helpful to you guys to sort of understand and see how can you sort of leverage your skill set to become a successful pattern designer. So I think we're almost short of time now, and if you guys have any more questions, you can reach out to Teresa on Instagram. She has already shared her Instagram handle with you all, so reach out to her on Instagram. And you want to say something, Teresa?
Also, yeah, I do want to say something. I want to leave everyone here with, so what I mentioned early on was when I first got started, I took an online course in surface pattern design, and it was with a teacher called Bonnie Christine, and she was really great at teaching the fundamentals of surface pattern in terms of how to create one from the very beginning, and also how to put together a portfolio in her later courses. But it was through Skillshare, and let me just, if you sign up with them, I was able to have them, when I told them that I was coming on this AMA, I was able to get a free link for everyone to try it out. So let me just paste that for you. Oops. So if you use that link and then this coupon code, you should be able to join Skillshare. And through there, the teacher that I really like, there's many different surface pattern classes, but the teacher I really like, her name is Bonnie Christine. So I hope that helps. And, you know, my intention of being on this AMA was to be transparent in terms of what it, you know, it does, you know, take, there's going to be obstacles, but you'll be able to overcome them if this is your passion and if this is what you really love to do. There's room for you. There is definitely so many opportunities. It's just find what calls to you in terms of which industry. And eventually, if you break into one industry, you can always break into another. And it's so broad, and there's so many opportunities. And looking at it from that point of view, and I wish everyone the best of luck.
This is really nice and really great, and I'm sure that the link that you have shared would be really beneficial for all the attendees out here. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and I hope that this AMA session with Teresa was valuable and insightful for you. And Teresa, thank you so much again for joining us for this AMA session and coming live. And it was really, really insightful and valuable session. And I really hope that we keep on doing these AMA session for the community together.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us again, once again. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.